The Westwood family had always believed in appearances. Wealth, charm, and status were everything in their eyes. And so, when the time came to welcome a new daughter-in-law into their prestigious household, the choice seemed obvious. Isabelle, with her family fortune, dazzling presence, and polished manners, was their perfect pick. Clara, humble, quiet, and largely invisible to the family, stood in the shadows, watching as the decision was made without a second thought. She had been overlooked, dismissed, underestimated, but she wasn't defeated. Before we go deeper into this case, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. From the very beginning, Clara noticed the cracks in Isabelle's charm. Subtle moments of arrogance, careless mistakes, and lack of genuine empathy marked her presence. Yet the family chose to ignore them, blinded by wealth and appearances. Clara's first interactions with the family were met with indifference, polite nods, and smiles that never reached the eyes. She understood quickly. In the Westwood household, proving oneself was never about effort. It was about strategy, timing, and endurance. David, Clara's confidant and closest supporter, noticed her struggle but also her strength. "They don't see you yet," he said one evening, "but patience has its own power." And so Clara began her journey, not one of immediate recognition, but of quiet, calculated influence. She learned the family's routines, studied their habits, and discovered the gaps where competence could quietly shine through. Clara's first victories were invisible to the family, yet they laid the groundwork for everything that would follow. She quietly solved minor problems, helped staff navigate challenges, and earned the silent trust of those who truly noticed competence over appearances. Isabelle, oblivious to the subtle shifts, continued to bask in attention and admiration. She flaunted her wealth, displayed her charm, and assumed the family would never notice Clara's quiet presence. Clara's patience became her weapon. She understood that every slight, every dismissal, and every underestimated action built a story that would one day reveal her true worth. Even small moments counted. A colleague's praise here, a subtle nod from David there, and the steady growth of her reputation among those who mattered laid the foundation for the shift that was about to come. By the end of these early months, Clara had established a network of quiet respect. The family might not have realized it yet, but the tide was changing. The morning air felt different that week. Clara could sense a shift, subtle but unmistakable. Her patience, her quiet efforts, and her careful observations were finally starting to show results, though the family remained mostly unaware. It began with the family business. One afternoon, a supplier called with a critical problem that threatened to delay an important contract. Isabelle, as usual, tried to take charge, confident in her ability to impress the family. But her flashy approach only made the situation worse. Clara, calm and composed, quietly proposed a solution that fixed the issue efficiently and without drawing unnecessary attention. By the end of the day, the supplier had praised her professionalism. David, who had witnessed the entire exchange, gave her a subtle smile and nod of approval. It was small, but to Clara, it meant the world. She understood that true power was not in being seen immediately. It was in results, in actions that spoke louder than appearances. Meanwhile, Isabelle noticed the growing admiration directed toward Clara from employees and colleagues. She could feel it, though she couldn't admit it. The more Clara remained silent, the more her presence commanded respect. Isabelle's forced laughter became slightly strained, her confidence faltering just a fraction. At a family brunch, the tension began to rise more visibly. Isabelle was recounting her latest charitable donation, emphasizing the amount and the prestige of the event. Clara listened quietly, sipping her tea, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with Isabelle's performative gestures. Suddenly, the youngest Westwood sibling asked a question about a project Clara had been working on quietly for months. Clara answered with precise detail, demonstrating her knowledge and skill. A few of the family members exchanged glances. Isabelle's smile faltered for just a moment. It was a small victory, but in the world of the Westwoods, small victories had a ripple effect. Clara could feel it in the air, the first cracks in the facade that Isabelle had so carefully built. That evening, Clara and David sat on the balcony, looking out over the city lights. "You're changing things without them even realizing it," David said quietly. Clara looked down at her hands, folded neatly in her lap. "I'm not trying to change them," she said. "I'm just making sure they see the truth when the time comes. The truth has a way of showing itself, eventually." David reached out and held her hand. "I see your strength, Clara, and one day, they will too." She smiled softly, but inside, she knew it wouldn't be easy. The family had underestimated her for years. They had made their choice, and they believed it was final. But choices, no matter how certain they seem, can be overturned with the right timing and the right strategy. The next challenge came during a high-profile company meeting. Isabelle strutted into the boardroom, expecting the usual admiration. She began presenting her ideas with practiced charm, fully expecting applause. But Clara, who had studied the numbers and market trends meticulously, quietly offered a suggestion that optimized the entire project. The board members, initially impressed by Isabelle's confidence, quickly turned their attention to Clara's proposal. The room buzzed with whispers and nods. For the first time, Clara noticed subtle acknowledgement from the family elders. They hadn't openly praised her yet, but their attention was shifting. Isabelle's composure began to crack. She attempted to interrupt, but the board politely redirected questions toward Clara, recognizing the expertise behind her words. A small part of Isabelle's carefully curated world was unraveling, and Clara remained poised, calm, and dignified. Before we go deeper, take a moment to imagine Clara in this moment. If you were in her shoes, quietly proving your worth while everyone underestimated you, how would you handle the tension? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Later that week, the Westwoods held a family dinner to celebrate a minor achievement in the business. Isabelle, still unaware of the subtle shifts occurring around her, continued to bask in attention. Clara, however, was quietly planning her next move. During the dinner, a minor accident occurred, one that could have embarrassed the family publicly. Isabelle panicked, unsure how to handle it. Clara stepped in, calmly diffusing the situation with ease. The family noticed, some exchanging quiet, impressed glances, while Isabelle's forced cheerfulness faltered. As the weeks passed, Clara continued her silent ascent. She completed her tasks flawlessly, earned respect from colleagues, and quietly built relationships that Isabelle assumed were hers to dominate. Every unnoticed effort, every careful action, was part of her strategy. The family's favoritism was no longer a permanent obstacle. It was a temporary misjudgment, a flaw in their perception. She did not need immediate recognition. She only needed to be ready for the moment when her contributions could no longer be ignored. The days that followed brought a new energy to Clara's life. Every small victory, every unnoticed effort that had gone unseen before, began to gain quiet recognition. Employees whispered her name in admiration, colleagues sought her advice, and even some of the family elders began to glance at her differently. Isabelle, oblivious to the subtle shift, continued to command attention with her charm, but the cracks in her confidence were widening. She laughed a little too loudly, adjusted her posture too often, and tried desperately to regain the spotlight that had begun slipping from her grasp. During a board meeting, Clara was asked to provide a report on a new project. Isabelle began her presentation first, full of charm and polished words. But when Clara spoke, her voice was calm, measured, yet compelling. She highlighted points no one had considered, proposed solutions to potential problems before they arose, and presented a plan so thorough that even the most skeptical board members were silent in admiration. By the end of Clara's presentation, the atmosphere had shifted. Isabelle's polished smile wavered. Questions were redirected toward Clara, recognition quietly acknowledging her brilliance. "Before we go deeper, I want to hear from you. If you were Clara, silently proving your worth while everyone underestimated you, how would you feel in this moment of quiet victory?" Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. During a weekend family gathering, Isabelle tried to dominate the conversation, but every compliment, every question, began shifting subtly toward Clara. Even the youngest Westwood sought her guidance, signaling the family's perception was changing. The charity gala that week proved it further. a last-minute issue arose that could have embarrassed the family. Clara resolved it calmly and efficiently. Guests noticed her composure. Isabelle, struggling to maintain her image, realized for the first time that her dominance was being quietly challenged. The weekend arrived with a sense of anticipation. Clara had been preparing quietly for days, making sure every detail was perfect. The family had planned a business showcase with investors and influential guests. Isabelle assumed she would dominate. Clara moved with quiet precision. When Isabelle spoke, the audience initially admired her charm. Then Clara spoke. She proposed solutions to problems no one anticipated, explained strategies with clarity, and impressed investors with her insight. By the end, the room buzzed with admiration. Isabelle faltered. Her forced charm no longer commanded attention. David leaned in. "This is it. They finally see you." Before we go deeper, I want to hear from you. If you were in Clara's shoes, standing in front of the family and the guests, quietly proving your worth while everyone underestimated you, how would it feel? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Over the next few days, Clara's quiet competence reinforced her influence. Isabelle's charm could no longer compete. The family's perception had shifted. Clara had earned respect through patience, strategy, and resilience. The gala arrived with tense energy. Clara knew tonight the truth could no longer be hidden. Isabelle, still expecting favor, rehearsed her charm. Clara remained calm. David whispered, "Tonight, they see everything." At the gala, Clara spoke calmly, presenting solutions, insights, and results. Guests and family were impressed. Isabelle's dominance shattered. Before we continue, I want to know, if you were in Clara's shoes, finally having your worth fully recognized after being overlooked for so long, what would you feel? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. The family was stunned. Isabelle broke down emotionally. Clara remained composed, knowing true victory is about recognition, respect, and quiet triumph. David whispered, "This is what patience looks like. This is what strength looks like." The patriarch acknowledged Clara publicly, praising her dedication, insight, and resilience. The family hierarchy shifted permanently. Before we close this story, I want to hear from you. What part of Clara's journey moved you the most? How would you feel if your worth was finally recognized after being overlooked for so long? Share your thoughts below. I read every comment. The gala ended, but Clara's calm satisfaction lingered. David said softly, "You've shown the family what true strength looks like." In the days following, the Westwood household was transformed. Conversations now included Clara, decisions were guided by her insight, and Isabelle reflected on her limitations. Clara and David looked out at the city lights. "It's not just about them seeing me," Clara said. "It's about knowing that patience and persistence always pay off." If Clara's journey inspired you, take a second to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which moment of her story moved you the most, and don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a reminder that patience and perseverance always pay off. Welcome to Underestimated Saga, where every story proves that being underestimated doesn't mean being powerless. Clara had endured, persevered, and won, not through charm, not through wealth, but through patience, intelligence, and unwavering resolve. The Westwoods would never forget the night Clara, the once underestimated daughter-in-law, revealed her true worth.